Let's talk about spiraling and specifically into an emotional mental spiral that kind of gets you into a place where you probably don't want to be. So, first of all, what is spiraling? Often it gets triggered by something we see maybe in the media or a piece of guilt that comes up from a memory in the past or something negative that happened that in the process of avoiding that initial thought we begin to emotionally spiral. And it often takes us in the same emotional trajectory as where we would have gone if you continued thinking about that original thought. But it takes us into the direction of everything else that is similarly related in that particular emotional pattern. And it is a brain patterning. So realize that most of the time, when we are getting into that space, that mental emotional space, it's somewhere where we've been before. And it's a pattern, a pathway in our brain that is actually well recognized, unfortunately. And it's probably been there for a while. For those that maybe watch the news or they're encountering something that's shocking or traumatic, it doesn't have quite the same impact. There's a greater ability to bounce back, to regain homeostasis, to find a center and calm within that mental storm. But for those that have a patterning of trauma in that emotional space, it is much more difficult to extricate ourselves from that place. So the mental emotional spiral goes something like this. There is a trigger. That trigger becomes a platform or a jumping point for diving into a sea of emotion that is similarly related. Many different types of thoughts start percolating and attracting in more of the same feeling space or same thoughts, same guilt patterns, same shame, same um, mental spiral that kind of takes you deeper and deeper and deeper into this place of I don't want to be here. That's usually the bottoming out of that particular spiral is something like that. And to be very clear, the thought of I do not want to be here is a very common human experience that many people have lived through. There is only one direction from the bottom, and that is to start going back up again. So, how do we get out of this emotional spiral? Okay, first of all, you do need to feel your feelings. Absolutely need to feel your feelings, but to feel it without the context of the story. So, the question is, why do we as human beings constantly attribute meaning to experiences, sensations, what have you? That's what creates the spiral, is the creation of meaning or story. The extrication of which means that you are taking your power back. You are taking your power back from something that, a symbol that means something to you. Like, let's say that you're walking down a sidewalk and you step on a branch. To some people in some parts of the world, they have been taught that if you step on a branch, that's bad luck. But if we take our meaning or our story creation away from that connection, that meaning space, what we end up with is that happened. I stepped on a stick. Who cares? Instead of attributing meaning to it, we say that happened. And so that is what it means to be objectively oriented, is to give no emotional charge to events that have occurred. Step number one, take your power back. Stop attributing meaning or story. The second part is to positively focus or distract your mind from what just happened. And this can be a positive and negative thing depending on how it's used and in what context. You do need to feel your feelings. Absolutely. But in order to truly address the situation, oftentimes we need to create a slightly more positive spiral, an upward spiral into the light as opposed to the darkness. And giving yourself the ability to get into a more level emotional space that does not drain your energy. It's not about better or worse. It's about what is going to be more physiologically beneficial to you. Feelings of pain, grief, anger, um, all of these things, sometimes if you stay in that cortisol inducing space, your physical body is going to have a difficult time coming back out of that. It creates a hormonal cascade, and it creates this sort of like emotional whirlpool of bringing, like, sucking in all positive energy without giving anything back. It's kind of like creating a black hole within the center of your chest. It's like not super helpful often. So the question is, can you get into a positive spiral? And that positive spiral means, okay, literally in this present moment, what is one thing that I enjoy? And it's not something you're grateful for. Gratitude can be a misused weapon of mass personal judgment in ridiculous amounts. That's not what we're talking. We're not talking about gratitude. We're talking about pleasure and enjoyment. So what's one thing that I enjoy right now? Something that I enjoy is I enjoy like this little like jingling sound. Every time I move my head, there's like these little charms that make this little sound. I like that. That is something I can focus on to enjoy. What's something else I enjoy? This is how you create a positive spiral. I started with this. What else do I enjoy? I enjoy this deep color of purple. Oh, I'm touching it. It actually has like a really nice texture. That's cool. What else do I enjoy? I'm kind of enjoying this visual perspective of sunlight versus shadows and darkness, which I attribute wearing the color black with comfort and security and relaxation and sleep and cuddles and things that are like soft and comfy. And then sunlight, I attribute with feeling maybe blissful or kind of like airy, spacey. And I kind of enjoy like the warmth of the sun on my skin, or maybe like the warmth of my skin, but like in the context of a swimming pool and how those like light rays kind of dance like under the surface of the water and they make those cool patterns. Now you have created a positive spiral. Do you see how far we went with that? Keep going. What else do you enjoy? That's how you create a positive spiral. Does any of these things have meaning? No, there is no story attributed to this. This is sensation, sensation of sunlight, sensation of comfort and cozy. That's it. No meaning or story attributed. Got it? Take away the meanings. And so after that, after you've kind of gotten into a better state of mental, emotional, physiological, hormonal cascade, I need you to ask yourself this question. Have you eaten breakfast? Have you eaten today? Have you drunk enough water? Because if your body is not eating, drinking, sleeping on a scheduled basis, depending on how far you have spiraled, can create a physical sensation of anxiety. It can create a sensation of lack. It can create a sense of panic, and you will not know why. You will not know why because you didn't know that you needed to do number 2 and go to the bathroom like 15 minutes ago because you were too busy being anxious. But your body knew that, and it's suddenly giving you this sensation and feeling of panic because you can't get to the bathroom, or like your conscious brain isn't registering the fact that you need to physically go to the restroom and sit there long enough, drink some water so that you can get all that junk out of your system. You see how silly this is? Go back and watch my video on your pet suit, aka the body, because this is an animal creature that will create emotions of panic if its needs are not met. That is the essence of survival. And if you are not paying attention to those, that can create a mental spiral. The mind will latch onto anything in order to evoke the feeling of intensity so that you can meet your own physiological needs. It goes both ways. The mind can start a hormonal cascade. The body can start a hormonal cascade. So it is going to require some level of willpower to address your situation. So that would be the next step. Maybe the third step is willpower. It takes focus, intention to use your willpower to focus on a positive mind spiral. And it takes willpower to focus and meet your own physical needs. Have you slept? Have you eaten? Have you drunk enough water? Have you made sure that you're not in physical pain as much as is possible for your situation? 4, avoid mental traps. If you know that being on Facebook is a landmine of mental cacophony that is probably going to make you spiral, stop doing it. But you also have to find another replacement for that. So, getting into a hobby, a craft, something where your hands are busy, that's the thing that you reach for when you're feeling XYZ, anxious, sad, a low self-esteem, needing validation. Maybe it's the phone. Maybe you need to call someone that is constantly going to give you positive feedback. There's so many times when people that are in a negative mental spiral intentionally avoid positive people because they just completely forget about those people that are in their life. They don't attach to them. And even though being with people in a setting, a party, and maybe a yoga space, maybe being with those people is a little bit of a crutch because they are in a peaceful, positive mindset, and that rubs off on you when you're in a negative spiral. Using that initially is not wrong. Like, we are human beings. We are a very communal creature, like a very communal society, let's say like wolves or monkeys or maybe like an ant colony. These are like communal creatures. And as human beings, having some regulation dictated by those around you is not wrong. The only problem is when you rely on other people to sustain your emotional state rather than creating your own spiral. That's a bit more of an issue. So just realize that is a thing, but depending on how far you've spiraled, you might need to be around people and be a little bit of an extrovert like that. Or not even that, but you could just be in a coffee shop around other people who are regulated and allow their nervous systems to rub off on you. That's fine. Go to a bookstore. Go to a place that's public where people aren't going to bother you, but where you can still be around other people's nervous systems who are not nervous. Life hack. Enjoy. For introverts, it can be that simple. Extroverts know the power of being in a group and a community setting that is positive. But I think sometimes introverts have a tendency to spiral a bit more and to avoid situations that would actually assist them. It's like a double handicap there. So don't be that person. Also, humor is really helpful. If you can watch comedians or find something that isn't going to trigger you into a spiral, a negative spiral, comedy is really helpful, but sometimes it can be abrasive or like trivial, or it can feel too light and airy depending on what you were thinking previously was a problem. And so realize that sometimes the emotional impact is too high for where you're at. You need something that's less vibey and closer to the energy state that you're at, but isn't too much higher. So gauge it. How much goodness can you withstand in that particular moment is the question. Number 5, get physical. You need to take a walk. It doesn't need to be like, you get all the way out to the middle of nowhere because you walked 5 miles. No, like literally go outside and walk down the street. Go around your block. Get some fresh air. Touch some grass. These phrases exist because we need to get into your body, into your senses. Your physical body is always in the present moment. You are never devoid of access to peace. Now, whether you want to be peaceful or not is a personal choice. We're going to go back to willpower, step number 3, and the willpower to stay in a positive mindset, because it is very stressful for others to handle the constant drag of a black hole. So the question is, do you want to be a black hole or do you want to be a white hole? Do you want to be a person that is emitting joy or someone that is sucking in joy? It doesn't matter which one you are, but just realize where you are and where you need to be. Nature is infinitely giving. When you are around trees, the pine aromatics from essential oils from pine trees in particular is extremely calming. That's why I say to take a walk. Fresh air, outdoors, in the context of nature. Nature can handle everything you got, all your emotions, and recycle it and compost it and make it into beautiful, gorgeous flowers and trees. Stop being so selfish with your energy. Whatever you got, nature can take it. And it can use it for great and positive things. So go on a walk in the forest. I know it can be difficult to even mentally focus on how do I physically get there, which is why you might need to call a friend and be like, hey, can you freaking drive me to take a walk in the forest? Sometimes that's what you need. If the attention span has become so short because short-term memory is evaporated due to stress, then calling someone to keep you on track and take you to the place where you need to go and then doing that activity with you is really important for everyone. Trust me, people want to be helpful. It's a gift to get to help someone, particularly when things are at their worst. People like being a hero. Let them be a hero. Let them rescue you. Let you get some assistance to help. After all the times when you've helped other people, don't you think you deserve it? If you are spiraling this mentally hard, it's because you were carrying things that you were never meant to carry. It was too heavy. And so you are the one that deserves help right now. Give yourself the gift of allowing someone else to be your hero for a moment. But they can't do that unless you ask. The last part I would say is address the root addiction, because a spiral is there because, once again, that brain pathway has been walked so many times that you've done this to your brain so many times that it has an easy pathway for, when I see a trigger, this is how I respond, and I just absolutely spiral into the depths of oblivion. That's the normal pathway. The more times you repeat a pattern is the number of times it becomes easier to do that thing. So that's why the positive spiral is so necessary. How to do that, right? Remember the steps. Go back to the beginning of the video. Spiral positively again. But you need to address the underlying addiction. So why do I feel the need to feel this way? Am I punishing myself? Do I feel safe here? Is this everything that I know? When was the first time I felt this? How old was I? And as an adult, how do I meet my own needs from that moment? You might have to go back to a shadow work video and how to do some soul retrieval and how to do some reparenting and rescue yourself. But do that thing. Because the underlying addiction of why do I keep wanting to feel this way is really, really important. That is the foundation of all of this. All of these steps previously are in service of this one question of, why do I feel like I need to be here in this particular spiral? Do I want to still be here? Is being a victim comfortable? Is this everything that I know? Do I not want to take more responsibility in my life? Or do I literally not know how to get out and I need to help? And the lesson for me is, in this moment, is learning how to ask for help. Oh, that can be so hard. It can be so hard to figure out, how do I ask for help and not feel guilty about that? You are not an island. You are not meant to exist alone. You are not meant to live life devoid of assistance. You know what's sick is not receiving help. Do you know how nature never does that? Nature, a flower never just gives beauty without receiving something back. It's always doing reciprocity. There's a give and a take. So when a flower gives color and beauty and cool looking leaves, it's doing that because it's trying to get a service met. It's putting out those things into the world so it can get its own needs met. So why is it that you think you can give and be and do everything that you are without receiving anything back? Doesn't that seem a little bit unwell to you? So you expect to give and give and give and give without receiving anything back in your time of need. Do you want to be where you're at? Or is it okay to ask that friend, can you come pick me up and take me on a walk to the woods? Because I need you right now. Hey, stranger, I don't actually know you that well. You're just in my contacts list, but could you rescue me right now? Because I need help. You can always ask one person, one assist, one time. And there's a good chance that they'll actually do it. But you have to ask yourself, is learning how to ask for help literally the hardest thing that I'm allergic to right now? I don't know what your addiction is, but figure it out. And then when you're there, feel your physical body. Feel your emotions. Figure out what it is you are experiencing. Emotions are meant to be filled in the body. Okay? There's literally no emotion that you can think of that is not meant to also be felt in the physical body as a physical sensation. I know that in Western society we are completely devoid of our bodies and we do not recognize this as a truth. They say joy has a physical feeling. What the heck is that? No idea. And that's because there's so much masking. There's a lot of lies going on. But realize that if you're not feeling that emotion, because you can feel, most likely you can feel the negative spiral in your body. It doesn't feel good. It feels like anxiety. It feels like physical pain. It feels like chest palpitations. It feels like shortness of breath. You know what pain feels like. But you're sitting there and telling me that you do not know how to feel good, positive, blissful, joyful, freedom? You don't know what that feels like in your body, and you don't think that's a problem. Let's fix that. Let us go into that positive mind spiral. And I want you to notice how you're breathing. I'm not saying to avoid your negative feelings, but I am saying to take a break for a moment, get into a positive spiral, get into a place of calm and peace. And when you have recharged your emotions enough in nature or through crafts and hobbies or positive thinking, or maybe just distracting yourself with a movie for a second, long enough to come back to those negative emotions and be like, so why did I spiral? What's the magnet here that's continuously pulling me back to this negative spiral? But you need to recharge your emotions and your spirit and your mind and your body long enough for you to make that deeper dive possible so that you can raise that part of yourself through shadow work, through all these different techniques, heal yourself to a level where you don't have to go that dark anymore. You don't have to feel pain like that or get triggered or just get angry at the drop of a hat because you got triggered by something or go into a death anxiety spiral because something triggered you in your life. That is giving yourself control, or not rather control, but like agency, sovereignty over your own emotions. I don't like the word control. We don't need to control emotions. We need to feel them, experience them, and direct them. Any emotion can be used positively. It just depends on what you are physically doing with it. Are you using it to create, or are you using it to decompose your cells? These are the questions that we must ask ourselves. And then the last step in this whole process, and maybe it should have been an earlier one, but at some point, Consider the concept of self-soothing. Do you have self-soothing mechanisms or habits available in your life? Do you think about that? So, particularly for men, I love y'all, but sometimes you really suck at knowing how to relax. And instead, you will go to the gym, which is kind of detrimental for your joints and all these other things, depending on how much you're going. We forget to use the yin way or self soothing approach, which means if I feel triggered, I'm not going to beat myself up about it and work harder and do more and break my body up apart more. I'm going to rejuvenate, and that's going to be my self-soothing mental emotional spiral. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is go take a yoga class or get on YouTube and go do a yoga class. Or my favorite, if you're really stressed, you've really been in anxiety mode for too freaking long, put on some healing music from YouTube. 432 hertz is great. Then put on some incense. Do that. And while you're doing all that, draw a bath with Epsom salts, if at all possible, an entire cup of Epsom salts in the bath. Make it warm, and then get in there and sit for a minimum of an hour. Sometimes the hardest thing that we can do is take a break because we never let ourselves have a break. We never let ourselves just stop and be. In the capitalistic society that is meant to break you down, you are not a cog in the machine. You are not a machine. You are a soul. You are a soul that happens to be walking in a fancy mechanics of a biological body or machine. And as such, it needs time to physically repair. So getting yourself into that rest digest cycle by taking a bath and setting aside time to mandatorily make yourself relax is important. And particularly for men who really, really do not give themselves a physical break, because sitting in front of the TV is not necessarily self-soothing. It's not. You're still working your mind. You're not being present. You're not being present with your emotions. I need you to cut all of that out and focus on sensations. What can you taste? What can you see? What can you touch? What can you smell? This is what we're at. And get rid of all the screens while you do that, if at all possible. If you're going to watch a movie in the bath, okay, maybe, but it needs to be something that you would have a 5-year-old watch. Because if it is some kind of like very action-packed something or other, no. It needs to be appropriate for a 5-year-old who's going to cry if the protagonism gets a scratch. That's where we're at. So something extremely gentle, if you possibly can. And some people aren't ready or able to go to that level, but you know your level of trauma, act appropriately. But find your way to things that are more sensationally oriented, maybe meaning the 5 senses, and get yourself involved with that for an hour. It takes 15 minutes for the brain to shut off and get yourself to sleep, like literally be asleep. A healthy body will fall asleep in about 15 minutes. When it's bedtime at 10 o'clock, make sure you're in bed by 10 so that all your organs can renew themselves. According to the Taoist practice, that's when that happens. Make sure you're in bed by 10 p.m. But also realize that your body needs that time to rejuvenate. And so whenever you are giving yourself these ways of getting into your senses, you are getting closer to a meditative state where you can have the possibility of relaxing. Admittedly, some people have so much trauma that the moment their mind gets into a peaceful space is the moment that they have to start doing shadow work, because all of these emotions and feelings and panic starts coming up. But that's a part of the process. You have to be able to have a self-soothing mechanism that at least gives your body a break so that it doesn't have to be so anxious. And then when you're there, sometimes the most difficult thing that anyone can do is relax. Literally, the most difficult thing. And so I need you to actually do that for you, for your relations, for your future happy self. If you can't even conceptualize the sake of being happy, then you definitely need to relax and do the shadow work while you're there. If that's what comes up when you're in the bath trying to relax and be peaceful, then let's do that, because that's what we have to deal with. But make sure that you're feeling your physical body, you're in your senses, you can smell the incense the entire time. I am a somatic therapy life coach. This is One Life Mechanics. I am here to assist and help you grow into your best life, and I will see you next time.